There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize they can no longer continue living below their potential. A moment when the excuses no longer satisfy, when distractions no longer entertain, and when the life they're living no longer reflects the strength they feel buried within. That moment is not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. This work is written for those standing at that crossroads, for those who have tasted comfort and found it bitter, for those who are tired of settling, for those who feel deep down that there is something more inside them waiting to be unleashed. Kill that weak version of yourself that keeps quitting is not a collection of motivational cliches. It is a call to arms, a challenge to confront the truth about your current self and to rise above it, not through temporary inspiration, but through deep discipline, unshakable responsibility, and courageous self-transformation. Inside this book, you will not be comforted. You will be challenged. You will not be told to wait. You will be told to act. You will not be given permission. You will be reminded that you never needed it. Each chapter is a battlefront. Each principle is a weapon. And your life, the one you've been avoiding, postponing, or compromising, is the battlefield. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about stripping away everything that is not truly you. The weak version of yourself, the one that delays, complains, avoids, and settles, must be put to rest. That version has had its time, and that time is over. Because the world doesn't need another half-awake, half-committed soul wandering through life. The world needs fire. It needs leaders. It needs builders. It needs warriors. It needs you, the real you. So this is your invitation. To stop waiting, to stop hesitating, to stop apologizing for the strength inside you, and to finally step into the life that was waiting for you all along. You already know what must be done. Now, let's do the work. There's a hidden battlefield that most people never talk about. It's not found in foreign lands or televised conflicts. It lies within. Inside every human being, there is a war waging daily between two versions of the self. The one you are and the one you are capable of becoming. That better version of you, it's not a fantasy. It exists. It's more focused, more courageous, more disciplined, more principled. It wakes up early when you feel like sleeping in. It pushes harder when you want to quit. It speaks with clarity when fear would otherwise silence you. But right now, it's buried beneath layers of excuses, distractions, and self-imposed limitations. You may think, I'm doing fine, but that's the trap. Fine is the enemy of great. Comfort whispers that there's no need to push further, but deep down you know. You know that you're not living at full capacity. You know there's untapped potential burning inside you, screaming to be released. Every day you face a simple but profound question. Will you protect the current version of yourself? Or will you declare war on your weaknesses? This is not a poetic metaphor. It's a real fight. A brutal internal rebellion against laziness, fear, procrastination, and insecurity. These aren't small nuisances. They're assassins. They sabotage your dreams in silence. And the more you tolerate them, the more powerful they become. Your mind knows how to negotiate with mediocrity. Tomorrow, it says. When it's easier, it promises. But those promises are lies, and they steal your future. The only way to win is to kill those lies. Kill that voice. Kill that weak identity that has been running your life. You don't tame it. You don't reason with it. You replace it. This inner war doesn't ask for your permission. It will rage regardless. But you get to decide which side you fight for. Will you rise each morning ready for battle? Or will you surrender one more day to the enemy within? Because make no mistake, the weak version of you isn't just holding you back. It's slowly destroying everything you could be. David Goggins. David was once overweight, depressed, and stuck in a dead-end job. He looked in the mirror one day and saw the truth. Not who he wanted to be, but who he had allowed himself to become. That moment of brutal honesty sparked a war within. He didn't just want to change. He declared war on every excuse and every weakness. He became a Navy SEAL, an ultramarathon runner, and a symbol of relentless self-discipline. He didn't wait to be rescued. He became his own revolution. Comfort is the most deceptive form of failure. It doesn't come screaming through the front door like catastrophe. It tiptoes in, whispering promises of rest, safety, and ease. It tells you to slow down, to take it easy, to wait until you feel ready. And before you realize it, comfort becomes your lifestyle, your identity, and eventually your prison. At first, it feels like relief. You tell yourself you've earned a break. You start avoiding the hard conversations, the early mornings, the discipline that once shaped you. You exchange ambition for ease, challenges for distractions, purpose for entertainment. But what feels good in the short term gradually erodes who you are at your core. Comfort lulls you to sleep while your dreams suffocate quietly in the background. What makes comfort so dangerous is that it rarely feels dangerous. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. Instead, it feeds you just enough satisfaction to keep you passive, just enough pleasure to keep you stagnant. But deep within, a part of you knows the truth. You feel the unease, the restless energy that nothing external can soothe. You scroll endlessly, binge content, drown yourself in tasks that feel urgent but aren't meaningful. Yet nothing silences that quiet voice inside that keeps whispering, "This isn't it. You were meant for more." That whisper is your soul resisting sedation. Comfort teaches you to avoid the very things that would elevate your life: risk, challenge, pain, failure. It trains you to recoil from effort. But what it never tells you is this: everything worth becoming lies on the other side of discomfort. Growth is supposed to hurt. It's supposed to stretch you, break parts of you, and demand more than you think you can give. It doesn't come with a pillow. It comes with a shovel, and you'll need to dig through your own limitations to find it. Here's what most people don't realize. Safety isn't safe when it keeps you small. The routine that once brought structure now becomes a cage. The job that once paid the bills now buries your calling. The people you once leaned on now fear your growth because it makes them confront their own stagnation. If you keep chasing comfort, you'll wake up one day and realize you don't recognize the person in the mirror. You'll wonder when you stopped fighting for your potential, when you stopped choosing growth over ease, action over delay, boldness over mediocrity. And it won't be one moment that caused it. It'll be thousands of tiny concessions made in the name of comfort. So ask yourself, what has comfort cost you already? Has it cost you time, discipline, self-respect? Has it kept you from taking that leap you know you're ready for? Has it diluted your goals, narrowed your vision, shrunk your courage? Because if it has, it's time to rebel against the lie. It's time to train yourself to crave the difficult path, the one that sharpens you, to welcome discomfort as the companion of purpose, to seek not what's easy, but what's meaningful. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the doorway to the life you were meant to live, the life that comfort will never give you. And here's the truth. You can't step into your higher self while clinging to comfort. One has to die for the other to live. So kill the lie, kill the comfort, and watch yourself rise. Howard Schultz. Born in Brooklyn, public housing, Howard grew up watching his father struggle in low-wage jobs without health care or dignity. Instead of accepting that life, he imagined something greater. He built Starbucks from the ground up, despite people laughing at the idea of a premium coffee shop. He chose discomfort, risk, and challenge because he believed in a better world for workers. Comfort never built anything great. Schultz chose legacy over ease. J.K. Rowling. Living on welfare, raising a child as a single mother, J.K. Rowling wrote the first Harry Potter manuscript in cafes between job searches. 12 publishers rejected her, but she refused to give up. She didn't seek comfort. She chased purpose and changed the world. We live in a world obsessed with motivation. Social media is flooded with inspirational quotes, high-energy videos, and endless reminders to get motivated. And yet, millions remain stuck, waiting for that spark, that emotional high, that perfect moment to begin. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Motivation is a liar. It's unreliable, unpredictable, and fleeting. One moment it lifts you to new heights, the next it vanishes, leaving you stranded with your excuses. If you build your life around motivation, you will build your life on sand, unstable, inconsistent, and easily swept away. Motivation is a mood. Commitment is a decision. The people who transform their lives don't rely on bursts of inspiration. They rely on discipline, forged by a deep commitment to who they want to become. They act not when they feel like it, but especially when they don't. Because that's where real power is born, in the days you don't want to show up, but do anyway. In the moments when comfort screams louder than your goals, and you choose progress anyway. That is where transformation takes root. Not in passion, but in perseverance. Let's be clear, there is nothing wrong with feeling motivated. It can be a useful spark, but it should never be the fuel. Your fuel must be something deeper, something rooted in identity. A decision that no matter how hard it gets, no matter how long it takes, you will not stop. You will not quit. You will not negotiate with the version of yourself that wants to stay average. This kind of commitment isn't emotional. It's foundational. It's not made in front of an audience, with music swelling in the background. It's made in solitude, in silence, when no one is watching. It's made when your alarm rings and your bed is warm, when your muscles ache and your goals feel far away, when your doubts are louder than your dreams. That's when commitment is tested, and that's when it matters most. Ask anyone who's built something meaningful. They'll tell you the same thing. The work is boring, repetitive, lonely, uninspiring. And yet they show up day after day because they've made a vow to themselves that they will not live beneath their potential. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for motivation to strike. They build habits, systems, rituals. They train themselves to act in alignment with their vision, regardless of their emotional state. You must do the same. You must replace, "I don't feel like it," with "I said I would." You must replace "maybe tomorrow" with "I'm doing it today." You must replace excuses with execution, because every time you act out of commitment, you strengthen your will. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you reinforce your identity as someone who finishes what they start. And over time, those small acts of defiance against your weaker self become the bricks that build an unshakable foundation. Eventually, you stop needing motivation altogether. You become a person who moves forward regardless. You become a force. You don't rise because it's easy. You rise because it's who you are. So the next time you feel tired, uninspired, or doubtful, remember this. Motivation asks, "Do I feel like it?" Commitment says, "Let's begin." Choose commitment. Choose consistency. And let that be the fire that never burns out. Kobe Bryant. While other athletes slept, Kobe trained. He was known to practice for hours before his team even arrived. He didn't rely on hype or emotion. He built systems. His life was a commitment to greatness, not a flirtation with motivation. Motivation fades. Kobe's commitment forged a legacy. Angela Duckworth, author of Grit, she studied what makes people succeed. The answer wasn't talent. It was passion sustained over time with relentless effort. Commitment isn't glamorous, but it wins. There is a mindset that quietly destroys lives. Not through violence, but through surrender. It masquerades as truth. It sounds rational, even justified. It convinces people that they're not in control of their own future. It's called the victim mentality, and it is a thief of potential. The victim mindset tells you that life is unfair and that there's nothing you can do about it, that your past defines your future, that other people's actions have ruined your chances, that success is for those who had better parents, more money, better connections, fewer problems. And here's the seductive part. It's not entirely false. Yes, life is unfair. Yes, some people start further ahead. Yes, your pain is real, your obstacles are real, your trauma is real. But here's what you must understand. Real doesn't mean it has to control you. Every moment you indulge in the belief that your life is the product of what has been done to you, you surrender your power to change it. You hand over your agency. You become passive, an observer of your life rather than the author of it. Because if your problems are someone else's fault, then your solution is someone else's responsibility. And that right there is the trap. As long as you blame, you wait. You wait for apologies. You wait for justice. You wait for better conditions. And in that waiting, your potential rots. Look around at the people who build, who grow, who lead. They've all been through something. Many have suffered more than you'll ever know. But they made a different choice. They decided that their life would not be defined by their suffering, but by their response to it. They understood this principle. Responsibility is not the same as blame. You may not be to blame for your wounds, but you are responsible for your healing. That's not injustice, that's empowerment, because it means you are not bound by your past. You are not condemned by your circumstances. You are not shackled by what others have done. You are free to choose your response. That's what separates those who rise from those who stay stuck. Not the presence of hardship, but the refusal to let hardship have the final word. The victim mindset is attractive because it feels like comfort. It gives you sympathy. It gives you an excuse. It gives you the illusion of peace. But underneath, it breeds resentment. It grows bitterness. It keeps you small. The most dangerous part? It's self-reinforcing. The longer you stay in it, the more evidence you find to support it. And the more powerless you feel, the more you act like you are. And so you become what you feared. But there is a way out, and it begins the moment you say no more. No more blaming. No more waiting. No more hiding behind stories that say you can't. It begins with radical ownership. You start to say, I am where I am, but I don't have to stay here. I may not have chosen my pain, but I choose what I do with it now. I will no longer let the actions of others dictate my destiny. This is not easy. It demands emotional courage. It forces you to look in the mirror and see where you've made excuses, where you've given up, where you've used your wounds to justify your inaction. But it also gives you back your strength. And once you taste that strength, real, earned, internal strength, you'll never want to go back to helplessness again. Because now you're no longer asking for a way out. You're building one, step by step, choice by choice. And that's what freedom really is. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of power. So reject the illusion. Stop saying, I'm stuck because of them. Start saying, I rise because of me. Because in the end, you are not a victim. You are the author of your life. Write something powerful. Oprah Winfrey. She endured poverty, abuse, and trauma, but never let her circumstances define her. Oprah rose not because her life was easy, but because she chose not to be a victim of it. She took control of her narrative and built an empire that inspires millions. Pain was real, but power was her choice. Nick Vujicic. Born without arms or legs, Nick could have lived his entire life in bitterness, but he didn't. He became a global motivational speaker, showing others what resilience looks like. He may lack limbs, but he walks taller than most. There is a moment, quiet and brutal, that arrives in every person's life. It's the moment when you stand in front of the mirror and see the truth, not the version you post online, not the story you've told others, not the excuses, not the blame, but the raw, unfiltered reality of who you've become and who you've failed to become. And in that mirror, you're confronted with a single piercing question. What role have you played in your own suffering? Most people flinch at this question. They turn away, they deflect. It's not my fault. If they hadn't hurt me, if life were fair, if only I had more support, more time, more luck. But this kind of thinking doesn't heal. It doesn't empower. It delays your evolution. Because sometimes the real reason you're not where you want to be isn't because life is unfair. It's because you didn't do the work. That's not a judgment. That's a revelation, one that can set you free. Yes, you've had challenges. Yes, you've had obstacles. But if you're honest, truly honest, you'll find moments where you chose comfort over progress, where you let fear dictate your decisions, where you avoided the hard thing and convinced yourself you had a good reason. You see, the mirror never lies. It reflects the gap between potential and reality, and it shows you the one person who can close that gap. You. This is where responsibility begins. Not with shame, but with clarity. Responsibility is not about punishing yourself for past failures. It's about reclaiming your power in the present. It's standing tall and saying, I didn't follow through, but I will now. I've made excuses, but I'm done with that. I've been running, but today I turn and face what I fear. This kind of ownership changes everything. Suddenly, you're no longer waiting for life to give you permission. You're not asking for someone else to fix it. You're not depending on external motivation. You've taken the wheel. You've said, this is my life, and I own every inch of it. It's easy to talk about responsibility when things are going well, but true responsibility is tested in failure. Can you own your delays, your inconsistencies, your avoidance? Can you admit that the story you've told yourself about why you can't was just a story? Can you take back control not in some dramatic gesture, but in the quiet decision to show up every day, rebuild your integrity, and close the gap between who you are and who you could be? That is the work. That is the growth. And yes, it hurts. The truth often does. But pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. It doesn't show up to destroy you. It shows up to point to the place where your work begins. You don't escape the mirror by breaking it. You transform by standing in front of it, again and again, until your reflection matches your vision. Responsibility demands that you stop living reactively. It demands that you rise from the stories you've used to stay small. It demands that you stop blaming your past for the future you refuse to claim. Because here's the secret. Once you own your failure, you unlock your power to succeed. And that power is greater than any excuse. So the next time you're tempted to deflect, to defend, to delay, pause. Ask yourself, what part of this is mine to own? What truth am I avoiding? What decision can I make today that future me will thank me for? That is the mirror of responsibility. It does not flatter, it does not comfort, but it will set you free. And on the other side of that freedom, the life you were born to build, finally within reach. Jocko Willink. As a Navy SEAL commander, Jocko taught extreme ownership. If the team fails, it's on the leader. No excuses, no blame, just ownership. Responsibility isn't a punishment, it's power. James Clear. After suffering a serious injury in high school baseball, he rebuilt himself through tiny daily habits. He later wrote Atomic Habits, helping millions design lives of discipline and progress. Change didn't start big. It started with one small choice owned completely. There's something lurking beneath the surface of your life, quiet, invisible, and powerful. It's not your schedule. It's not your workload. It's not even your environment. It's fear, masked, disguised, and cleverly hidden behind the distractions you've made a lifestyle out of. You don't see it at first. Fear doesn't announce itself. It rarely shows up as terror or panic. Instead, it shows up as procrastination, as overthinking, as that endless scroll through social media, that third Netflix episode, that one more productive task you suddenly must do before working on your real goal. Fear hides behind busy work. It feeds on comfort. And the longer you ignore it, the stronger it becomes. This is how most people live, not in direct confrontation with fear, but in constant avoidance of it. We design our lives around it. We construct entire routines to keep ourselves protected from anything that might expose our weakness, challenge our identity, or demand transformation. We call it being practical. We call it not the right time. We say we're waiting until we're ready. But deep down, you know what you're really doing. Stalling. And here's the real cost. Your life is being dictated by a force you refuse to confront. The job you hate but won't leave, the conversation you avoid having, the dream you bury under responsibilities and doubt. Those are not choices. Those are fears in disguise. And while fear whispers in the dark, distractions dance in the light. They keep you engaged so you don't notice what you're really running from. They keep you safe but small. You scroll, you snack, you overcommit, you overconsume, all in the name of staying sane, while the life you truly want inches further out of reach. Here's the paradox. The very thing you avoid holds the key to your next level. The task you fear, the decision you delay, the step that makes your heart race, that's the path. But to walk it, you must confront what you've been unwilling to admit, that your comfort has become your cage, that the familiar isn't fulfilling you, it's numbing you, that staying where you are doesn't protect you, it's slowly breaking you. You see, real fear isn't fear of failure, it's fear of growth. Because growth requires death. The death of the old self, the old story, the old limitations. That's why you avoid it. That's why you distract yourself. Because part of you knows that becoming who you're meant to be will cost you who you are today. And change, real change, is painful. But it's also powerful. You don't escape fear by running from it. You overcome it by walking straight into its fire. You confront the thing you're most afraid of and realize it cannot destroy you. It never could. That difficult conversation you've been avoiding, it might liberate you. That bold career move you're scared to take, it might unlock your calling. That inner healing work you've resisted, it might restore your peace. But you'll never know as long as you keep choosing distraction over direction. So how do you break the cycle? You pause. You turn off the noise. You sit in the stillness and ask, what am I really avoiding? What is fear trying to protect me from? What if I faced it instead of fleeing from it? Then you do the hardest thing of all. You take action. Small, immediate, courageous action. Not because the fear is gone, but because you've decided it won't rule you anymore. This is how warriors are made, not in the absence of fear, but in defiance of it. And every time you do this, every time you resist the urge to run, to numb, to distract, you reclaim more of yourself. More clarity, more power, more truth. Because in the end, it's not the fear that destroys us. It's the silence we give it. It's the way we pretend it's not there, while it quietly directs our decisions, our relationships, our future. You must choose to shine light into those shadows. You must choose to name what you fear. And then, with steady breath and trembling hands, you must walk forward anyway. That's how you take back your life. Not by escaping fear, but by stepping through it. Cal Newport in Deep Work, Cal reveals how digital distraction hides our deeper fear. The fear of not being good enough. Most people don't check emails 100 times a day because they're busy, but because they're avoiding real work that matters. Fear doesn't always shout. Sometimes it scrolls. Stephen Pressfield in The War of Art, he defines resistance as the invisible force that stops us from creating, building, doing. It's fear in disguise. When you stall, it's not time you lack. It's courage. Courage isn't loud. It doesn't always look like heroism or make headlines. Most of the time, real courage looks like a quiet, private decision to keep going, when everything inside you screams to stop. It's waking up and choosing to fight, even when you're tired, afraid, uncertain, or alone. It's pushing through the resistance, not because it feels good, but because you refuse to stay the same. Let's get one thing straight. You will be tested. Life will break you down. It will confront you with failure, loss, criticism, and moments that shake your faith in yourself. And when it does, you will face a defining choice. Will you fold, or will you forge? Most people fold. Not because they're weak, but because they've been taught to fear the fire. They've been told that pain is a signal to stop, that hardship is a detour, that struggle means something is wrong. But the truth is the opposite. Struggle is the forge. Pain is the crucible. Fire doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to refine you. Look back on your life. What shaped you most? What built your resilience? What taught you strength? It wasn't the easy seasons, it was the dark ones. The heartbreak, the setbacks, the loneliness, the failures that felt final. Those were your fire. And if you faced them, if you walked through them instead of around them, they didn't destroy you. They rebuilt you. That's what courage is. The decision to move through the fire, not around it. Courage is knowing you might fail and showing up anyway. It's risking rejection, judgment, humiliation, and doing the hard thing regardless. It's not fearless, it's faithful. Not to the outcome, but to the process. To your values, to your potential. To the belief that what's ahead is worth enduring what's in front of you. And here's the deeper truth. You will never know how powerful you are until you're forced to be. You won't know how strong your voice is until you speak it when it shakes. You won't know how far you can go until you run on empty. You won't know how much fire you can withstand until you stand in it. Every person who ever became something more than they once were had to go through this. There's no shortcut, no bypass, no painless path to greatness. And the fire will demand everything. It will strip you of comfort, certainty, identity. It will expose your weaknesses and force you to confront your doubts. It will humble you, stretch you, break you. But if you stay in it, if you endure it with intention, it will also transform you. It will melt away the parts of you that were never meant to last. The fear, the ego, the excuses. And it will leave behind what's real: strength, clarity, purpose. That version of you you've glimpsed in your dreams, the warrior, the leader, the relentless one, doesn't live in fantasy. That version lives in the fire. You don't become that person in safety. You don't become that person by staying soft. You become that person when you say, "This hurts, but I'm not leaving." When you say, "I'm scared, but I'm still going forward." Because courage isn't about waiting until the fear disappears. It's about acting in spite of it. And what you'll find on the other side of courage is not just strength, it's liberation. Freedom from the limitations you placed on yourself. Freedom from the fear of pain. Freedom from the version of you that was too afraid to evolve. So here's the challenge. Stop trying to avoid the fire. Walk into it, not recklessly, but purposefully. Not carelessly, but courageously. And as the flames rise around you, remind yourself, this is not where I end. This is where I begin. Simone Biles. At the Tokyo Olympics, she shocked the world by withdrawing from events to protect her mental health. That choice took more courage than competing. She taught a generation that strength isn't just physical, it's emotional intelligence and bravery. She didn't quit. She stood for something. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, he found meaning even in the worst suffering. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning, proving that humans can endure almost anything if they believe it matters. He walked through hell and found hope inside the fire. Discipline has a reputation problem. It's often mistaken for rigidity, restriction, or punishment. People equate it with rules, control, and the suppression of joy. But discipline isn't a cage, it's the key. It doesn't imprison you, it frees you. Discipline is the foundation of every meaningful transformation. Every dream realized, every standard raised, every purpose fulfilled. And yet, most people treat it like an inconvenience, something to practice when it's convenient or when motivation strikes. But discipline is not about what's convenient, it's about what's necessary. Motivation might get you started, but only discipline will keep you going. Look at anyone who has achieved something truly significant. Artists, athletes, leaders, entrepreneurs. They didn't get there by being consistently inspired. They got there by being consistently committed. They showed up on the days they didn't want to. They worked when it was boring. They stayed focused when others got distracted. They didn't let feelings decide their actions. They let values do that. This is where most people fail. Not because they lack talent, opportunity, or intelligence, but because they haven't trained themselves to do what needs to be done, regardless of mood. That's the essence of discipline, choosing what you want most over what you want right now. It's skipping comfort for consistency. It's silencing the voice that says later and acting now. It's saying no to distraction, even when it's easy to justify. And yes, it's hard, but the alternative is worse. Without discipline, your potential will always remain untapped. It will stay an idea, a possibility, a maybe someday. And someday never comes for those who are owned by impulse. Here's the truth most never face. You are always training something. You're either strengthening your discipline or reinforcing your excuses. Every time you hit snooze, skip a workout, break your promise, or abandon your plan, you teach your brain to take the easy route. And soon, quitting becomes your default setting. But the reverse is also true. Every time you push through resistance, finish what you started, show up when it's hard, you strengthen your identity as someone who follows through. And that identity, that's what changes your life. Because discipline isn't just a behavior, it's a character trait, a core value, a personal standard. It becomes who you are, and as you live by it, you begin to see a deeper truth. Discipline creates freedom. Freedom from procrastination, freedom from guilt, freedom from chaos and regret, freedom from depending on external forces to move your life forward. When you master yourself, you master your time. You stop being reactive and start living on purpose. You stop floating through life and start steering it. This is the paradox of discipline. What feels like restriction on the surface is actually liberation at the core, and it doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency. You don't need a flawless plan. You don't need to be extreme. You need to show up every single day, not with fanfare, not with heroics, but with quiet, repeated action. Wake up on time, eat with intention, move your body, do the work. Say no to what doesn't align. Hold the line when no one's watching. That's where your power compounds. And over time, what was once difficult becomes instinctual. You no longer have to fight with yourself to do the right thing. You've trained yourself to do it naturally. That's not just discipline, that's freedom. The kind of freedom that most people never experience because they were too busy chasing comfort to build character. So ask yourself today, are your daily actions creating strength or reinforcing weakness? Are you becoming more of who you were meant to be or just more efficient at staying the same? Because the results will tell you the truth. And if the truth is hard to face, that's okay. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to get better. And discipline is how that happens. So commit to the path. Live by principle, not preference. And watch your life transform, not in giant leaps, but in daily, deliberate steps forward. The kind that no one else sees. The kind that few will praise. But the kind that builds greatness, one choice at a time. Serena Williams, her talent was undeniable, but it was discipline that kept her on top for 2 decades. Early mornings, brutal training, countless sacrifices. Serena didn't rely on moods. She relied on standards. Greatness isn't sexy, it's scheduled. David Goggins, even outside the SEALs, he runs 100-mile races and trains like he's still in combat. Why? Because he believes discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. He doesn't chase feelings, he follows his vow. There's a trap more subtle than fear, more addictive than comfort, and more paralyzing than failure. It's the need to be liked, to be approved, to be accepted, validated, and applauded by others. And at first glance, it doesn't seem dangerous. After all, isn't it natural to want to fit in, to belong, to feel valued in the eyes of others? Yes. But when that desire becomes your compass, when other people's opinions become your guide, you lose something far more valuable: yourself. The approval trap isn't obvious. It creeps in slowly. It starts with small compromises. You adjust your voice to be more palatable. You shrink your ambition to avoid making others uncomfortable. You laugh at things you don't find funny. You say yes when you mean no. You become a watered-down version of yourself, not because you're weak, but because somewhere along the way you started to believe a dangerous lie, that being accepted matters more than being authentic. This is how you lose your edge, your originality, your power. You stop making bold moves. You start second-guessing every word, every idea, every risk, afraid that someone might disapprove. You trade courage for compliance, purpose for popularity. And here's the tragedy. No matter how much you twist yourself to please others, it's never enough. There will always be someone who disapproves. Always someone who misunderstands you, criticizes you, disrespects your vision. You could sacrifice everything, your truth, your boundaries, your dreams, and still fall short of their expectations. And in the process, you lose the only approval that ever truly mattered, your own. You see, approval is a mirage. It looks like fulfillment, but it leaves you empty. Because it's not rooted in who you are, it's rooted in who you pretend to be. And the more you chase it, the more disconnected you become from your mission. Your creativity dulls. Your confidence fades. Your decisions become diluted by consensus. Soon you're no longer living your life. You're performing a role in someone else's script. So how do you escape the trap? You stop asking, "What will they think of me?" and start asking, "What do I think of me?" You stop chasing applause and start chasing alignment. You stop asking for permission and start living with conviction. It's not easy. When you begin to live from a place of authenticity, you will feel resistance. People will question your decisions. Some will pull away, some will criticize your shift. Not because you're wrong, but because your courage exposes their fear. Your clarity makes them uncomfortable. Your independence reminds them of the parts of themselves they've silenced. And rather than rise with you, many would prefer to pull you back down. But here's the gift in all of this. When you stop living for approval, you start attracting the right people. Not the ones who tolerate you, not the ones who expect you to fit into a box, but the ones who respect you for who you are, even when you stand alone. You attract relationships built on truth, not performance, respect, not compliance, depth, not decoration. And most importantly, you gain something far more valuable than external validation: self-respect. Self-respect is what allows you to walk into a room and not need to dominate it. It's what gives you the strength to say no without guilt, to take the road less traveled, to live in alignment, even when it's unpopular. Because true power doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being rooted in values, rooted in truth, rooted in an identity that no longer bends to the winds of other people's opinions. So if you're tired of performing, tired of playing small, tired of living a life that isn't fully yours, it's time to stop asking for applause. It's time to let go of the illusion that approval is the prize. The prize is freedom. The prize is purpose. The prize is waking up every day and knowing you're living your truth, not someone else's version of it. Because the people who change the world, who build, create, and lead, they are not the ones who tried to be liked by everyone. They are the ones who had the courage to be real. Elon Musk. From being mocked for electric cars to launching rockets, Musk never bowed to public opinion. He takes risks most fear and makes decisions based on vision, not validation. He's not trying to be liked, he's trying to build the future. Lady Gaga, she was called weird, dramatic, too much. But she stayed true to art. Her authenticity became her power. She stopped asking for permission and started leading movements. There's a version of you, one that most people will never meet. Not because it doesn't exist, but because you've kept it locked inside. You've glimpsed it in moments of clarity, in flashes of determination, in the fire of your imagination. It's the version that stands tall, unwavering. The version that moves with purpose, speaks with conviction, and never bows to fear or comfort. That version is not a fantasy. It's your future self, the warrior within. But here's the truth. That version is not handed to you. It is earned. It's forged in the fire of discipline, in the storms of doubt, in the silence of sacrifice. It's built by choices that few are willing to make and by actions that others won't even notice. Most people will never become this version of themselves, not because they lack the ability, but because they lack the commitment. They settle. They settle for what's easy, for what's familiar, for what's socially acceptable, for a life that asks nothing more of them than to simply stay alive. But you were not built to settle. You were built to rise, to carry weight, to shoulder responsibility, to blaze a path where others see only obstacles. And the way to become that warrior version of yourself isn't through inspiration. It's not about watching another video or reading another book. It's not about waiting for the right timing or circumstances. It's about deciding fully and finally that who you are today is not enough for the life you were created to live. That decision is the turning point, because from that moment on, everything changes. Not externally, but internally. Your standards rise. Your tolerance for mediocrity shrinks. Your excuses lose their power. You start moving differently, speaking differently, thinking differently. And you realize something profound. The world begins to respond not to your wishes, but to your energy. When you walk with purpose, you attract purpose. When you radiate discipline, people respect you. When you carry yourself like someone who refuses to lose, you rarely do. But make no mistake, this path is not easy. To become the warrior, you must first bury the victim. You must kill the old self, the one addicted to validation, to comfort, to justification. You must burn the bridges that lead back to your weaker habits, weaker routines, weaker identity. You must stand alone before you stand out. And that means pain. It means discomfort. It means facing the parts of yourself you've avoided for years. But it also means power. Because once you do this work, once you shed what no longer serves you, you begin to embody something unshakable. Your emotions no longer dictate your actions. Your circumstances no longer define your worth. Your environment no longer controls your behavior. You become sovereign, self-led, unapologetically responsible for who you are and what you build. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to become someone in the eyes of the world, you start becoming everything you were meant to be. That's the warrior, not a perfect being, but a purposeful one. Not invincible, but relentless. Not fearless, but willing to fight, even when afraid. So ask yourself, who are you becoming? Are your daily actions aligned with the highest version of yourself, or with the most comfortable version? Are you building habits that strengthen your core, or that sedate your potential? Are you preparing for battle, or waiting to be rescued? Because no one is coming. No one can give you the discipline, the focus, the courage you need. It must come from within. From the decision to stop living on autopilot and start living on purpose. And that purpose isn't found in the crowd. It's found in the quiet, lonely places where you wrestle with yourself, where you face your fears, your excuses, your shadows. Only when you master those battles will the warrior within emerge. And when it does, you'll never go back. You'll never again ask for permission to be powerful. You'll never again apologize for ambition. You'll never again fear the work, because the warrior doesn't seek approval. The warrior doesn't need comfort. The warrior only needs one thing, a reason to rise. And if you're reading this, you already have one. Tom Brady, drafted in the 6th round, doubted by coaches, he worked tirelessly to prove he belonged. Over time, he didn't just prove it, he redefined the quarterback position. The warrior inside you doesn't need applause. It needs action. Bethany Hamilton. She lost her arm in a shark attack at 13. Many assumed her surfing career was over. Instead, she returned to compete professionally with one arm. She didn't wait for her strength to come back. She found a new one. Every journey leads to a crossroads, a moment where you are forced to decide who you will be. Not who you wish to be, not who you talk about being, not who others believe you are, but who you will actually become through your choices. That moment doesn't come with trumpets or warning signs. It often comes quietly, disguised as discomfort, as frustration, as restlessness. But make no mistake, when it arrives, you'll know. It's the moment when staying the same becomes more painful than changing. The moment when the excuses sound hollow, the distractions feel meaningless, and the comfortable life you've built begins to feel like a cage. In that moment, you face the final decision, a decision that defines not just your next step, but your entire future. Will you remain the version of yourself that clings to excuses, comfort, and limitation? Or will you rise, fully, unapologetically, and finally, into the life you were born to live? This decision is not theoretical. It's not emotional. It is a call to action, a commitment to transformation at all costs. Because becoming your highest self isn't a tweak. It's a complete identity shift. You cannot take your old habits with you. You cannot carry your old excuses. You cannot keep the same mindset and expect a different outcome. Something must die for something greater to be born. And that's the cost that most people are unwilling to pay. They want change without challenge. They want growth without sacrifice. They want freedom without responsibility. But that's not how real transformation works. It demands that you let go of who you were, of what held you back, of the version of you that was good enough. Because good enough is the enemy of greatness. You already know this. Deep down, you feel it. You know the cost of inaction. You've tasted the bitterness of wasted potential. You've felt the heaviness of days lived without direction. And you've seen glimpses, flashes of who you could be if you simply stopped hesitating and started owning your path. So let this be the moment. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Not because it's the perfect time, but because there is no perfect time. There is only now, and what you choose to do with it. Do not wait for life to hand you a sign. This is your sign. Do not wait for motivation. Motivation will betray you. Do not wait for validation. The only person you need permission from is you. This is your life, your calling, your mission, and no one is coming to save you, because you were never meant to be saved. You were meant to rise, to stand, to build, to lead, to break the chains of who you were and walk boldly into who you're becoming. And yes, the path ahead will be hard. You will fall. You will doubt. You will fail. But you will rise again, stronger, clearer, more focused. Because once you make the decision to become your highest self, you stop negotiating with weakness. You stop flirting with comfort. You stop entertaining the old you. You kill the version of yourself that clings to the past, and you give birth to the future with every disciplined step forward. And what lies on the other side of that decision? Everything. Everything you were meant to build. Everything you were meant to experience. Everything you were meant to give to the world. But none of it can happen until you decide. So decide. Not halfway. Not conditionally. Not when it's easy. Decide fully. Decide completely. Decide now. Because the clock is ticking. Your life is happening, with or without your permission. And every day you delay, you drift further from the greatness that is within your reach. But when you choose, truly choose, to become the person you were meant to be, you change everything. Your habits, your voice, your relationships, your results, your legacy. The world doesn't need another version of who you've been. It needs the fire of who you're becoming. So stand up, look yourself in the eye, and make the final decision. Kill the weak version of yourself and rise. The life you want is not waiting in the distance. It's waiting on the other side of who you refuse to be any longer. Eric Thomas, a high school dropout who lived on the streets, Eric made a decision that changed his life forever: to rise. He went on to earn a PhD and become one of the most powerful motivational speakers in the world. He didn't have resources, he had resolve. Arnold Schwarzenegger, from a small village in Austria to bodybuilding champion to Hollywood star to governor of California, every step was built on one decision: I refuse to live a normal life. Decide fully. Then build wildly. If you've made it here, you already know the truth. There's a version of you that you've kept buried. Stronger, sharper, more resilient. A version that doesn't make excuses, doesn't settle, doesn't fear discomfort. That version has been waiting for one thing all along: a decision. Not a feeling. Not another motivational speech. not better timing. A decision. Because becoming your highest self is never about the right moment. It's about becoming the kind of person who acts regardless of the moment. Throughout these chapters, you've faced the war within. You've confronted comfort. You've seen how discipline is forged, how fear hides behind distraction, how the need for approval strangles authenticity. You've walked into the fire, and if you're ready, you've walked through it. So what now? Now you live it. You rise every morning not asking, how do I feel, but declaring, what must I become? You stop delaying the actions that define your growth. You stop waiting for courage and start practicing it. You choose purpose over popularity, standards over comfort, conviction over convenience. You show up for yourself, your vision, your future, even when no one claps, even when no one notices, even when no one understands. Because warriors don't need applause. They only need one reason, and you are that reason. The weak version of yourself doesn't just disappear because you've read this. It will keep whispering. It will keep tempting. It will keep waiting for the moment you're tired, frustrated, or lonely. But now you know the truth. That weak voice has no power unless you listen. It has no strength unless you give it space. It only wins if you choose it. So don't. Choose the fire. Choose the pain of growth over the comfort of regret. Choose to become unrecognizable to the person you were before this journey began. Because from this day forward, you're no longer someone who merely hopes for change. You are someone who creates it. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of your rise, your legacy, your potential fulfilled. And when it gets hard, and it will, you return to one simple truth. You were never meant to stay small. You were meant to become something unshakable. So go. Live disciplined. Live bold. Live full. Because your future is not waiting for who you are. It's waiting for who you decide to become today.